All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our September 2024 update. And thank you for joining us today. There we go. So for those who don't know me, I'm Peter Mellor, and I'm the Manager of Partnerships and Growth for SuperMate. As usual, we'll be joined by our Product Manager, Reese Hopper. You may notice that, unlike previous webinars, we don't have a special guest today. This is due to Craig Stone currently enjoying a well-earned break through the UK, France, Croatia, and Italy. Reese will still provide a demonstration of how workflows can be used in SuperMate, as well as the recent changes to wind-ups, annual returns, processing, and reconciliation. So without wasting any more time, I'll hand over to Reese for his demonstration on workflows, etc.
Thanks, Peter. I'm going to go through the SuperMate demo where I'll be covering off workflows, which is a new feature we're about to release in SuperMate. It does exist in Classic, but we're bringing it to SuperMate. And a few changes to the wind-up process, annual return updates, and other process and reconciliation changes that we've done. Workflows in SuperMate, they're not just a basic flick and tick. Okay, I've got 5 things to do, flick and tick. They're actually quite comprehensive, and since they are comprehensive, they do provide a lot of benefits. The first one is a training guide. We do have users that have set up workflows so that when they get a new employee, they can say, okay, you need to do an end of year process. Here is the end of year workflow, start the workflow and go. And it could be tailored for a graduate level where a person is starting to learn about Super, and it'll go through and have detailed steps on how to process SMSF and the rules and regulations. It's also can be used when you take on more experienced staff. The workflow acts as a standard operating procedure, and it takes them through the steps of how this firm performs their work. So what I mean by that is, certain firms will send the financials for signing first, then audit, and then once the audit's released, back to the client. Other firms, they'll send the funds straight to audit. So it's a way of saying, hey, this is how we do our work. The next benefit is it does act as a bit of a checklist in the fact that for our more experienced users, it reminds people on what they have to do. You can have an end of year workflow which has all the different steps that relate to a property, and it can just remind people, oh, that's right, I got to go do a property title search, or I got to go check certain compliance documents because there's an LRBA, and you can list all those different documents in the step. Reporting tool for management point of view, managers can jump into SuperMate. They can see where funds are up to from an end of year perspective. They can also see what work is in the pipeline, not just end of year work, but if you set up workflows for other tasks, you can see what other work is coming up, or what tasks people have on, and you can also see other people have less tasks, some people have more, so you can use it to reallocate work, which leads into work management. I mentioned you can reallocate tasks, but from a individual user themselves, as a user, you can jump in and go, okay, what do I have to do today? And then you jump into your task screen, which I'll show you later, and you can see a list of tasks that need to be completed. I mentioned before that the workflow steps, or what the workflow is, quite comprehensive, and it is powerful. The type of steps that we allow to be performed in SuperMate is one of the reasons why it's so comprehensive and powerful. So you can have sub workflows, which are workflows within workflows, and that sub workflows give you the ability to create a mini workflow, for example, reconciliation, and then you can use that workflow multiple times in a workflow. So you could have, say, in an end of year workflow, you can set up a reconciliation sub workflow. It'll do all the once the end of year workflow gets to the sub workflow, it'll get you to do all the all the reconciliation steps. Then okay, I've got queries, so I raise some queries, get the queries all answered, then I can go back through the reconciliation phase. Or you could set up a little sub workflow, and then if you want to repeat those workflows, you can reuse it in other workflows. So, for example, you can use it a reconciliation workflow in the end of year. If you have a monthly reconciliation workflow, you can use it there, or you can put it in before responding to certain superstream messages, or create starting pensions. So you can reuse that sub workflow. It just saves you having to rebuild the workflow. We have iterations, which are a type of sub workflow, and iterations basically repeat themselves based on criteria. Say you have a workflow and you need to check member insurance. If you set up the iteration to only repeat itself then for every member in the fund, if you have 4 members, you get 4 sets of tasks to do to check the insurance. If you have 1 member, you get 1 set of tasks. It's quite handy because it just saves it just saves you having to go through and checking multiple different check multiple members' stuff in one step. So make sure you get every single member. We have questions, which could either be manual or automatic. The manual ones are questions that can be asked where the information doesn't exist in SuperMate. For example, you could ask, does the trust deed need amending? And then you can have different types of answers, yes, no, and something else. So you can have multiple answers. But basically, when a user selects an answer, it'll cause the workflow to split and answer one way, you go one way, answer the other way, you go that way. So using our trust deed example, if I say, yes, it needs a trust deed amendment, it could take you over to some steps to do the trust deed amendment and then loop you back around to the workflow. Or you can say no, and it can just continue on and skip those trust deed amendment questions. We have automatic questions, which the system will just use data within SuperMate to answer the questions automatically. Say you have an end of year workflow and you could have an automatic question that goes, does this fund have property? And if it says yes, then it can take you through all the end of year steps, all the tasks to you normally perform for a property that has for a fund that has property. And no, it just skips it. So then the automatic question, it just saves a user time rather than having to flick through all the property questions because it doesn't have a property. It'll just skip those steps, move on in the workflow. We have functions, which has a set of instructions in it and also has the ability to take you to the screen to perform that function. There's websites, which once again is a step. It provides you information on what to do, and then there's a link to an external website. We have automatic processes, which will run certain jobs, say a period update, or run a set of reports or letters or data audit wizards. And then with the data audit wizard ones, it's actually pretty cool where you could set it up to run the data audit wizard, and it acts similar to a question where if it fails, it will take you to the screens to rectify what was failed. But if it passes, it moves on. And that can be quite handy where you could have certain steps you want users to do if the data is incorrect and the system can pick it up. For example, you could have in a workflow, you could run the door that checks whether there's any trustees set up correctly. And if it fails, then you can go, it can take you to the screens to check that the trustees are set up correctly. If it passes, it just skips. And they happen so quickly that with the doors, you don't even realize. So the system can do multiple checks for you and only take you to the screens that are required to adjust. And the last one is a delay, and that's really just a step where you can delay a workflow, put it on pause until you need to action something. An example of a delay is, say, if you send queries to a client, you could pause the workflow for 14 days while you wait for a client to respond, or if you send a fund to audit, you could delay it for 3 to 5 days, and while you wait for the auditor to come back to you. And then if the auditor hasn't come back to you within those, after the 5 days, it'll take you to another step, follow up the order. Okay, enough talking about SuperMate and the workflows. Let me show you how the functionality works. I'll just bring up SuperMate. Here is the site overview. As you can see here, we have the end of year tracking. This is what I meant from a management point of view. You can see where funds are up to. You can get an overall status of where overall, you can see here, 2024, it is a demo site. I've got 7 funds that have been started, 250 that aren't. If I select on the card, you can get a breakdown per fund. You can upload the lodgement due dates. If anything's lodged, you can check when it's lodged. You can check the status of an individual fund, and you can also start it or continue work. So from a management point of view, it's quite handy in the fact that you can see where funds are up to, and you can use it as a reporting tool. The next screen I'm going to show you is the workflow one. And you can see here, from a management point of view, I can review all the workflows running to all teams. I can see what workflows are outstanding, who the owner is, and what current task it's up to, and who's that task owner. So I can follow up James or Kylie or myself to see what's going on, or know what work they got on. This is the task screen, and as you can see in the task screen, you can view once again all teams from a management point of view. You can see who's got task outstanding, when the task was started. It's similar to the previous workflow screen, except you could have a workflow could have multiple active tasks. So from the task point of view, you can see more tasks that are outstanding. And it just gives you a bit more detail about what someone has on. But also from a user point of view, if I jumped in, selected mine, I will see a list of tasks that I have due, and I can just jump in and knock off those tasks. Okay, I'll jump into the future super fund, and I will start a workflow just to show you what they look like and how comprehensive they can be. So just jump into the workflow screen, select start workflow. I'm going to start one for commencing a pension. And I'm going to start this pension on the 15th of 9th, 2023. Select start. Now, the first thing you could notice is that it's different to the other workflow systems where it's just a status that can be updated, or a list of tasks, and you just tick, tick, tick. Our workflow is actually has a little it acts as a little pop-up screen. You can move it around, you can reshape it. You can minimize it if you want to see what's behind the screen. You can bring it back up. The first task, commencing a pension. This is what I mean by it gives you a lot of, it can give you a lot of instructions and it can take you through the steps. So as a new user, I could go, okay, well, I need to commence a pension. What's the first thing I need to do? Okay, I need to reconcile the transactions. And by that it means reconcile the transactions up to the date of the pension. This is a function step. I can see here by a little screen, and when I select the screen, it actually takes me to the screen that I need to perform the function. So what I mean by, well, how this is helpful for new users is that they don't need to know anything about like where all the different screens are in SuperMate. It can take you straight to the screen. Obviously, it highlights when you're in a screen, it does highlight the side and where it is in the menu structure, so the users can over time learn where screens are, and the menu navigation isn't that difficult. But yeah, so for a new user, it can take you straight to the screen. For a more experienced user, it's quite handy because it just takes you straight to the screen. You don't have to navigate to the relevant screen. Yeah, so I've got a task here. It says reconcile up to the date. I can minimize the workflow so I can see what's behind it. I can see that there's probably a few things I need to reconcile, but I'm just going to keep moving on for the sake of the webinar. All right, so I select complete. I get the next step, review the holdings as of pension commencement date. I select the screen, takes me to the asset overview screen where I should review, and then I can just update the date, review the holdings. When I'm ready to move on, select complete. Now, this step here is one of the automatic processing steps. You can see here that it's running a period update. Good thing about when the workflow is running a period update, I can still go change screens. The workflow stays. The workflow is still the automatic process is still running. So for a period update, it's running a few earning rates. It's generating reports. So it is something like it might take 15, 20 seconds. Okay, there you go. You can see that it actually completed. It says the next step is to review the reports. So I will select the screen. It'll take me to the screen where I can view reports. I can jump in, look at the attachments, see the doors, look at the reports. I'll just complete it. Then commence a pension. Jump in here. I'll start the pension. Just start the pension. I should mention before when it ran the period update, since at the start of the workflow, I said the pension should commence on 15th of September 2023. It actually ran the close at that date. So it's quite handy where you don't have to remember dates and put it in. Select complete. It's running a automatic step where it generates a letter. It's already complete. Take me to the screen. I can review the commencement letters. Task to raise a query. So for my firm, I send the queries out to the client using client view. So I'll just raise a query, send the pension minutes, attach them, complete, have the minutes been signed. So this is one of those steps I was talking about where it's a question. This one is a manual one just to show off how you can answer yes, no. So I could say yes, and it's going to move me onto the workflow. If I select no, it would take me through some follow-up client steps or ring up client, see where the minutes are. Okay, so I'll select yep, and then it'll take me to the step to produce T-bar files. I can jump in here, I can generate the T-bar file, and then I move into the step where I need to lodge the T-bar file, and Since the ATO still hasn't built the SBR messaging or SBR reporting for TBAR, and you need to upload the file into the ATO. This step contains a website. I select the step. It takes me to the website where I need to perform the task. So this isn't the workflow I was just showing off just then. It's not a workflow that exists in SuperMate at the time. It's probably something that needs to be built, and it can be modified to be built around your process. It's just I think it's a handy workflow to show off, to show the different steps that take me to the screens, the manual questions, the automatic tasks. I didn't get a chance to show off iterations because it's just a quick one. But yeah, I've shown off how comprehensive our workflows are. And I should point out that also when you're on the stepper, you can view the workflow to see when steps were completed, who completed them, and you can also use this stepper just to navigate back through to different steps. And if you need to redo a step, you can select redo, and you can redo the steps. Okay, the next thing I'm going to chat to you about are the wind-up changes. We've received feedback that people want to process the end of year closes at certain dates, and it just to be more obvious that a wind-up is being performed on a fund. So just navigate back to SuperMate. You can see here the first thing you notice with this wind-up fund, it's a different futures fund, but you can see that when you do search it, search for the fund, it does have a tag to say that it is going to be a wound-up fund, and it also says that when you're in different screens, it'll say this fund has been set up to be wound up, and it lists the date. If I select the fund details chevron to jump into the fund details screen, this is where you can set the fund status to wound up, and you do need to set it as wound up to be able to generate the annual return questions and answers automatically. And you put in the wound up date. So you put the wound up date here, and then that flows through the whole system. The other change we've done is when you are performing the end of year close, it will now generate a report as per the wind up date. So if this is a set of reports I've completed earlier. If I bring that up, you can see here that the reports were generated as per the wind up date. And it's also in the annual return. It pre-fills the wind up date. So the next changes I'm going to talk about is the annual return changes. Based on feedback, we've made some changes to annual return just to make it easier to update some of the answers, and we've got a change coming out that I'll show you shortly. Jumping back into the future super fund, some of the changes we've made is that we've made more of these fields easy to modify. So for example, the SMSF auditor, I can change the auditor. We've received feedback that for some audit firms where they have multiple auditors, they will complete the fund, get it ready to be sent to audit. They send it off to audit to the firm, but they have multiple auditors and they're not 100% sure who is completing the audit this year. And once they get the audit report back, they go, okay, well, Damien Monahan is doing it today, or Gerald Green is doing it. And you can actually, so you can update the order and it will reflect in the annual return. We also made the declaration section easier to change. So we've received feedback that people want to update who the contact is, modify the phone number, modify the email address. So we've opened up these fields. We have also we've completed an enhancement where you can update or reset the values. So if you've made heaps of changes to the annual return and you go, okay, like you're starting to get validation questions about, this doesn't make sense, or you get validation errors, and you go, okay, I just want to reset the answers back to what they were, and start again. You can do that. Also, if some of these questions pull from sections in SuperMate, you can reset the values and it'll grab the data. So for an example of that is for, say, the tax agent. If for some reason you didn't have the right tax agent's number in there, or you're missing a phone number, these details do grab from the tax agent in SuperMate. So if you change the tax agent's phone number in, you can come here, select reset value, and it's going to update the phone number. So you don't have to reopen the fund and then reclose it. I think some other software out there make you, if you do make changes to the annual return, they make you reopen the years or reverse the create entries and then recreate the entries. Whereas we just let you update it, and then just as long as the tax annual return validates, it'll update in your end of year pack. Okay, some other changes that we have done. Let me jump back into the Future 9 Super Fund. One of the other changes that we've done, we've added the add another tick box for all transaction types. So originally we had this add another tick box, and it was really isolated to bank transactions, I think expenses. I'm not sure what other, but it was just a few screens. We received feedback that people want every screen, so we've gone ahead and on the purchase screen, we've added the add another tick box. I think to appreciation. So it's basically on every screen. And so what that means is that, so if you're processing expenses, you could create an expense, tick add another, the screen will stay open, and then you can just keep processing. So it's actually quite heavily requested, that one. Another bit of feedback we received is that people like to raise, well, when they're processing pension payments, they want the pension payments to be prorated based on the member's minimum. And this can be like where you have a husband and wife in a super fund, and they pay the exact minimum. And from a user point of view, you don't want to be going, okay, well, I'll process here, and then try and calculate how much is left as a minimum. Also, if you want to take it out of each member fairly, so that it's prorated and on the minimum basis, so you're not taking it all out of one member first and then the other member. So in the screen, if you go allocate, pension payment, I've got two members here, Jack and Jeff. I select prorata. It's prorated that 10 grand based on the minimums. Then I can just select save, or if I want to change it completely, I can just select clear all and put in whatever I want. And the last bit of last feature I want to show off is the pop-up screen. We have received feedback that there are certain screens in SuperMate where you open up the pop-up to process something, and you go, hang on, what was on the previous screen, and you can't see it. So what we've done is we've added this little collapse dialog here, and if you click it, it collapses it. We've made the background more obvious, that you can see what's there. So we've reduced the grey. So you can see here, say if for some reason I wanted to see what was behind the allocate split screen, I click here, I can see what's behind it. I can click it, bring it back, and then I can finish my processing. These were the features I wanted to show off now during this webinar. I will point out that apart from the workflow item, the rest of the items, they were based on client feedback, and we really appreciate user feedback. Is, you know, if we don't know if anything's annoying you, or if you think we can do something better, or if there's certain thing you want us to work on, we would want to know. So we have, it's been there for a while, but I will point out that we do have this feedback pop-up screen that you can use. And how it works is you click the feedback, you can type in your feedback, upload a file or take a screenshot so we know what you want, what the feedback, the screen that the feedback relates to. We always recommend more detail, the better, so we can kind of understand what you're trying to achieve and what change you want, and it also adds weight to the feedback. So if you use this feedback screen, that the feedback goes into our system, and I personally review all the feedback. So all this feedback that you get raised does get sent straight to the product team. Okay, these are the items that I wanted to cover off today. Just to recap, I showed off the comprehensive workflows where it's a dialog screen that can be moved around. It's quite interactive workflow, very handy. The changes to the wind up and a return screen changes, and then I ran through the other processes and reconciliation changes we made based on feedback. I'll throw it back to you now, Peter.
So Reese has given us a demonstration on the workflows functionality, as well as other recent changes that have come through into SuperMate. So, and for those who are not already using new SuperMate, I'm sure you're thinking that SuperMate looks pretty cool and it's pretty comprehensive, but I bet it costs a bomb. You may be surprised to know that the basic subscription starts at $11 per fund per month, plus GST, which gives you access to all the basic functionality like Data Hero, to read bank statements and create the bank transactions from them, property worksheets, workflows, standard data templates, as well as Macquarie Bank data feeds, broker data feeds, and the registry reconciliation with Computershare, Link Market Services, and Boardroom. So all of this help reduce the manual intervention and hence the time that you need to provide outstanding service to your clients. Not only that, but for only an additional $4.75 a month, you can get all of this as well as data feeds from over 100 other banks and financial services institutions. So, and in addition, once you subscribe to SuperMate, you become a part of the Super Concepts family, and as such have access to our SMSF education services provided by Craig Stone, who's been a special guest on previous webinars. So if you need any further information or would like to investigate on how we can make your life and the life of your SMSF clients easier, please contact me via the details on the screen. So now it's over to you. Is there anything that you want to know about what we've discussed today? Don't forget to click on the Q&A in the top of the Teams to submit your questions, and we'll get to as many as we can. It looks like Reese has done a pretty comprehensive job of going through the workflows and that information. If there are no questions coming through, what we'll do is we'll finish a little earlier today and you can get a bit of time back. So thank you all once again for joining, and don't forget that if you're interested or would like a demonstration that is more specific to the way that your business operates, please get in touch. Thank you.